to all our fellow imps out there. So we've put together a little video just to show you how we created our Harley Quinn medieval jester prop mallet. Now this mallet is an original design. We've taken some classic versions of Harley's mallet and put our own spin on it. So it's not going to look like one from a video game or a film, it's our kind of own interpretation. The idea is that eventually we will have a Harley Quinn styled in a medieval jester, kind of Renaissance and Venetian style to go with this, and hopefully a prop hyena as well will be posable. But well, that's for another day. So the video consists of a couple of photos, maybe a little sort of work in progress recording that we did, as well as obviously shots of the final thing, with my voice superimposed over the top of them. So I apologise for that. But it will show you how we went from basic EVA all the way through to what you see here. The metal textures, the bark textures, and then the trimmings, so the ribbon and the tassel, which you can't see down there. Hopefully you'll find this video useful, or at least interesting to watch, so we appreciate you guys checking it out. Now I've just got to keep little Impy here from stealing this and smacking us over the head with it for the rest of the week. It's going to be a bit difficult, but hopefully we can do it. I have to bribe him with some cookies. Anyway, thank you very much for checking this out. Have a fantastic day, guys. Bye! Hammer started life as an EVA foam and a broom handle. The wood grain ends that you can see in the photo were created using a hot tool, a craft knife and a fine pair of scissors. Before I could etch the wood grain in, I sat and marked out all the important lines I would need, using real pictures of tree stumps as reference. Then through a combination of a soldering iron, a craft knife and a small pair of scissors, I ended up creating this deep, dark and varied wood grain pattern. After the wood grain pattern comes the bark textures. I achieved these by using a combination of sculpting and texture stamps. Now we're going to see how they go on. Once I'd created the bark texture pieces, through a combination of texture stamps and sculpting, I ended up moulding them in a plaster called Herculite. Into the plaster I poured latex and created about 30, maybe 40 latex sheets. I trimmed them down and I stuck them on the EVA head of the mallet. I use contact cement as this is basically the best way and strongest glue to use on both latex and foam to get them to stick to one another. As you can see here, it took a long time to apply them all and stick them. It wasn't just a process of sticking them down, it was making them fit together and look like they flowed naturally and were just one uniform piece of bark as opposed to 30-40 texture stamp sheets of latex. So here's the 6 texture sheets in their latex form, and it was certainly interesting trying to get them to match together. So once I stuck all the latex sheets down onto the EVA foam mallet head, there were obviously some gaps and seams, so I needed to get rid of these to continue the illusion that this was a whole piece of bark and, as I said, not just 30 sections of latex. So I ended up sculpting with some flexi filler to fill these in to create the continuation of the bark. Just to give you an idea of how it was looking with the filler and what the filler would do, it is still very much at an ugly stage, but as you can see later on, once we get the paint on, all of that filler will become hidden and will merge and blend into the textures that were already there in the latex. This process did take quite a long time to do, and I believe I probably used about 2 or 3 different sculpting tools that I would normally use with my clay work. But it's definitely going to be worth all that time and effort. Once we'd stuck down and seamed everything, it was time to paint, so we needed to prime both the EVA and the latex. The best thing for the job that we found was flexi paint. We used a clear one, mixed it in with a couple of layers of acrylic, and painted everything so it stuck really well. Then we had the metalwork to create. This was created using strips of EVA foam and EVA foam clay for the rivet heads. We wanted to make it look uneven as it's an old medieval Renaissance piece. And here it is, all stuck down and attached. All the paintwork has been done. We just darkened the grain a little bit more than this in this picture. To get a rough hammered look on the metal bands that wrap around the mallet head, I used a rotary tool. This one specifically was a Dremel. I used one of the polishing heads and I altered the strokes and the depth of the strokes into the EVA foam to create an uneven and hammered worn look. Next step was the handle of the mallet, which is obviously a broom handle covered in EVA foam and more EVA foam clay texture stamps of the bark. The end of the mallet stick needed a cap, so we created one using EVA foam and metal buttons. We also created a similar metal texture using thickened flexi paint stippled on. We also used the back ends of some jewellery pieces for extra rivets just to give it that really dimpled look. These are the top bits near the head of the mallet. So here are all the components laid out. We have the mallet stick, the end of the mallet, we have the hammer head itself, and obviously the two pieces of ribbon. The next piece coming up is the end cap of the mallet stick. Here's the EVA all painted, including also some buttons, tassels, and we used metal glitter flake powder to create the lovely diamond pattern there. We also used the metal flake powder on the top part of the mallet to create this luscious, luxurious shine. This part was actually a plastic bauble. Here is the broom handle, aka the mallet stick, all primed and ready to go. As said before, we used EVA foam clay pushed into silicone moulds of bark texture stamps. We painted Harley's diamonds and tried to create a faded paint look. There are a few different shades of reds on each diamond. Two pieces of ribbon were then carefully wrapped around the handle of the stick. The stick does actually unscrew and rescrew to allow for ease of transportation. And voila! We have one finished mallet. Just for height reference, I am actually 5'2". And here's a video that just passes over all those lovely details.